Yeah, hi folks. Now, since the left-wing hysteria over COVID dissipated in New Zealand, their new focus naturally returned to the climate. And it has been climate change, 24/7 ever since. And our recent cyclones have been blamed on it. But what happened just a year ago that our media is now downplaying? Ah yes, the Tongan volcano, which according to NASA sent 58,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools of water into the atmosphere, which is most likely what caused our recent weather events. But today I want to focus on an article by the Gisborne Herald in which some people blame the Genesis Power Company for the recent flooding in Wairoa, and in which the power company gave a misleading response. And hat tip to Gazella Van Trite for this one. Now, this is Lake Waikirimoana here, and the Genesis power stations are located around here, and during the cyclone they released water into the Waikiri River here, which flowed into the Wairoa River down here, and the flooding occurred around this area somewhere. Now folks, I recorded this yesterday. Michelle McElroy was among those who expressed concern about the possible floodgate scenario, saying residents would be asking questions of Genesis. She wondered if the dam had been at capacity, and if there had been a need to let water out, why it wasn't done ahead of the cyclone. It could have been at capacity and they would have needed to let water out, but they should have warned us because they could have killed people if it was that. People were constantly being told to prepare for the cyclone. If Genesis knew there was going to be 200 to 400 millimetres of rain, it should have been releasing water ahead of it. But Genesis Chief Operations Officer Rebecca Larkin said, "Our resource consents require us to manage the level of Lake Waikirimoana, which in turn helps us manage the flow of the Waikiri River, which flows into the Wairoa River. The discharge through the Waikirimoana power scheme was less than 1% of the total flow at the Wairau township during Cyclone Gabrielle." During the cyclone, Genesis released between 35 and 40 cubic metres of water per second from Lake Waikirimoana as required by our consents. Now, 35 to 40 cubic metres of water per second is completely misleading because they don't mention when they open the floodgates and for how long. 1 minute is just shy of an Olympic-sized pool, 1 hour is 60 pools, 10 hours is 600 pools, and 20 hours is 1,200 pools of water. Now folks, there's more to this story.
There was somebody outside. I told them, tell the neighbours, get out because the emergency's not going to come.
The flood was nothing like Bola, which she remembered from her 20s. There was no rain. It was low tide. Full tide wasn't until about 12:30 that day. She and her sister had been river people all their lives. They'd checked on the river the night before and it was low. But that following morning, all of a sudden, was a different story.
Now all of that seemed very, very odd indeed.
Wairaua's Mayor, Craig Little, is vowing to stop any repeat of the floods that inundated North Clyde and other nearby areas in the town during Cyclone Gabrielle. He was confident he knew exactly where the Wairau River had breached its banks and that it was the same place where a breach happened during Cyclone Bola in 1988.
Yeah, it was because it was on a corner and the stop bank had been repaired after Bola.
He wouldn't be drawn on questions as to whether lessons previously learned in Bola had been applied since. He said his focus was on the clean-up, but he certainly wanted to find out what went wrong.
Yeah. So basically over here in the showgrounds, the river does a big bend and it's come straight across there.
So it's broken through a stop bank? Or
broken through a stop bank. They say it's the original riverbed, or where it used to go. Rivers always want to go straight.
Yes.
So if you get a bit more water, it'll come over. So we might look at things like stop banks and things like that.
Now I'd look into straightening the river as well. And when all else fails, the Greens bring out the child experts.
In Christchurch, close to 500 people stormed the council building.
Oh look, it's an insurrection.
Once again, demanding change.
What do we want? Climate action! When do we want it? Yeah, we're fighting for our future and politicians aren't going to listen unless we actually do something.
Started striking for climate strikes when I was 15 and I turned 20 this year. And the reason I'm still here is because I haven't seen any or enough change.
They're calling on the government to enact 5 key changes. No new exploration or mining of new fossil fuels, lowering the voting age to 16, protect 30% of our oceans by 2025, support regenerative farming, and introduce e-bike rebates for lower income families.
All Green Party policies. Now, 3 of those 5 policies were covered on the AM show.
Let's move on, talk about the school strike for climate today that's happening. Judith, you'll be pleased to know they're waiting until 3 p.m. after school before
I think that's a good idea. So,
Look who's back.
as we know, about 45% of kids, school-age kids, turn up to school these days. So we don't want anyone leaving school before they have to. So 3 o'clock, fine.
They've got a few demands, and I wanted to put them to both of you. Judith, they want 5 demands. I'll go through 3 of them. One is to lower the voting age.
No.
Good answer.
What about no new fossil fuel mining or exploration?
No.
Good answer.
Okay, what about subsidising e-bikes?
No, I don't think so. I think at
Waffly answer.
the moment, being able to, the country is actually in a very difficult cost of living situation. The last thing we should be doing is taking more taxpayer money, when we've got people who can't currently pay their food bills.
All right, because I guess you can also get a non-e-bike, just a regular
Just a
bike.
normal bike, yeah.
All right, so what about you lower the voting age, Michael?
That's something Cabinet's going to be considering in the next little while.
yeah.
So
Now, Labor and the Greens would love nothing better than to lower the voting age so they can stay in power forever.
be working through that. We've always had the view that if the voting age was to be lowered, that would be really significant, and there would probably need to be a process of the New Zealand public having their say on that.
So a referendum on the voting age.
Well, it would be really. In the past, we've had changes to the voting age. That's tended to be what's happened.
Do you think we're likely to see that at this election?
Oh, look,
Would we move that quickly to get
I think it would be very tough. And,
Can you please put it in this election so that everyone can vote against it?
I think that would be very difficult given the time frames.
Go on.
The other issue I'm really conscious of at the moment, yes, there are important issues to work through like this one, and there's been a legal process. It means that we do need to respond.
But it sounds like
we've also got a big focus on the cyclone recovery at the moment.
Totally.
Some of these things that we just might need to take a little bit more time to work.
So the message to those young people who we've had on the show this morning is that you would see the response to this to be a referendum on the voting age.
Well, look, I think for any big change to your voting system, you generally need to talk to the people.
Sounds like it's happening. No new fossil fuel mining or exploration.
Well, we've started the work in this area. You might remember we stopped new offshore.
Yeah. But what about onshore?
And we've got ongoing work in that area. Look, over time, we do need to phase out our use of fossil fuels if we're serious about climate and stopping these events.
But it's madness. This is madness.
It would be madness.
We're importing all this coal out of Indonesia because we can't actually dig it here because of you guys and your silly rules. And
Exactly.
fact is that at the time when there is an energy deficit in the world, yes, we are a very renewable, but we're not actually helping anybody by trucking in or shipping in coal out of Indonesia rather than using New Zealand coal.
And we mainly had to do that, Judith, as you know, because we had a particularly dry year last year. But most of the time our energy production is 90% renewable or more. This is the difference here. This stuff you can't do overnight, but whether it's across energy, transport, industrial production, we've got policies in place which are reducing emissions.
All right.
The National Party opposes every single one of them.
Actually, The last time it was 86% renewable was when I was the minister. Since then, it's been about 60 to 70% since.
All right, we'll leave that there. E-bikes, subsidising e-bikes, probably not at the moment.
No, we've got a targeted scheme in place called the Clean Car Upgrade, where we're going to support people to get out of dirtier vehicles
I asked you about e-bikes.
into cleaner vehicles. But there'll be an option within that if people want to put some of that towards an e-bike. So we are all public transport, but we'll give people that choice.
So so the discount you get, like if you buy a Tesla or whatever it is, you can, instead of buying a car, you might be able to use a subsidy to buy an e-bike.
So this isn't the main clean car discount that we have in place. It's the upgrade scheme. The trial will be kicking off from April of that scheme,
right?
And it'll be more focused and really pitched at people on lower to middle incomes who might have a dirtier vehicle. They want to shift to a cleaner vehicle, maybe a hybrid or something, but they will also be able to use it in that way if that's what they want.
All right.
Stuff you. They can pay for their own e-bikes. Yeah. Now, folks, it's very clear to me why Collins has been smiling and being nice. She knows Luxon is on his way out and she wants her old job back. And as bad as she is, she's much better than Luxon. Anyway, folks, I've posted all the relevant links below.